Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy Group. We are breaking it down. We're on, Alan, is it
23?
23, on Principle 23. And Stephen Shargell, my man over there in Florida, has brought up a diagram. This is figure 11, page 71 in the chiropractic textbook of Stevenson's. And 1927. We're going down through it, and what he's looking at, this is, I'll hold it up here. It's not easy to describe the one for our podcast, but if you want to look at that, what we're looking at, the origin of light is the universal intelligence, right? And as that refraction, the object seen, right? We know we see something, we're seeing the vibration of light that is not absorbed by that and then comes into the retina, right? If you see a green leaf, the other colors are basically absorbed by the light of the refraction, and we're receiving that reflection. This is number 3 is reflection, then refraction at the lens, and then we're looking at an impression, reception, the retina, adoption, function, expression, physical personification, reception, and the tissue cell, afferent nerve, transmission, and then we're at the back at the retina. I like starting at intellectual adaptation, and then 18, it jumps to universal intelligence. At 10 is the brain cell, then reception, mental, interpretation, sensation of light, ideation of light, innate intelligence, intellectual adaptation, universal intelligence, mental creation, brain cell transformation, mental impulse, propulsion, and efferent nerve. That's a beautiful cycle of light, Steve. Thanks for bringing it to light. What are the insights?
Just to clarify for people that are listening, Haig, before we go further, just to clarify for people, this is not part of Principle 23. This is a side discussion that we're starting a little bit before that.
Thank you, Alan.
Don't want people confused to think this is part of 23.
But Steve, what you're talking about, you wanted to get some insights. And I mean that as truly a pun, because this is the eyeball, okay?
I would like to know about UI, universal intelligence, not universal forces, is behind this, is the origin of the light of the sun. And within us, there is a universal intelligence that completes the cycle. Or at least it receives, once it goes from the retina to the brain, there's universal intelligence there. And that step then becomes mental and creation, brain cell, then mental impulse and propulsion to the efferent nerve, the nerve going from the brain to the body. But so I find it a wonderment that there's universal intelligence outside and there's universal intelligence inside in this cycle of sight.
Now, this brings in a, part of the discussion. Is there a beginning and the end of universal? Or is it all things? And then is it universal, then innate takes over? Because what you're talking about, I think, Steve, is, we have the universal forces coming in, and then the body's dealing with it, with its, part of it has to be educated as well. I have to learn that's a tree. I have to learn that's a cat litter box. I have to learn those things and to be able to discern it. Innate says, don't eat out of the cat litter box, or my educated does. Innate has to deal with that light and transmit it to the brain and give it a signal of understanding, transmutate it.
That's step 16, innate intelligence. 17 is intellectual adaptation. Then
Why did he put universal intelligence as the marker of that? And Marina, we're on page.
I think you're missing something.
Go ahead.
I think that you're missing the fact that although it's numbered in the sequence, universal intelligence in this diagram is not part of the sequence.
It's taken
It's
out.
It's listed outside of the sequence as an overarching intelligence that's involved, but it's the innate intelligence within that is creating the intellectual adaptation that moves forward through mentation and creation and through back to the brain cell that changes, that's adapting the universal forces and the universal, the intelligence is there. The forces that act upon us from universal are unsolicitous. And so the innate has to adapt those forces for us to be able to use them and not, they don't damage us. Universal intelligence is there, uber all, but it's outside
well, let me read
the actual sequence here.
let
And
me
mine
read
is the way I look at it.
let me read the bottom of 70 here. It says, innate gets an ideation of the character of that object and knows what relation the object may have to the body which she is guarding. In order to make response to this element of environment, innate assembles forces from universal, from which she can get an inexhaustible supply. The mental process of planning the response is intellectual adaptation. And the process of accurately assembling the forces is creation. But it does say innate assembles forces from universal.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. Innate is a part of, but apart from universal. So if innate is only a part of universal, then she has to be energized somewhere. She isn't independent.
I'm going to segue of where you are right now into function of innate, because you're actually talking about principle number 23 right now.
There we go.
Perfect segue.
What page?
262.
Because we're going to talk about exactly what this discussion is right now. If you don't mind, I'm going to start.
Hi, Marina.
Hi, Marina. The function of innate intelligence, principle number 23.
Right on.
The function of innate intelligence is to create adaptive forces to be used in and for the body. Everything in the universe has a purpose, and that purpose is its function. Obviously, innate intelligence being in the universe has a purpose. Objects of inorganic matter do not need adaptation, so they have no special attention from universal intelligence.
Wow.
That's a wow. The special attention is given to certain units of matter by universal intelligence. And the name of this special attention is innate intelligence.
There it is.
Innate intelligence, the law of organization, continually originates the forces and materials within the organism to keep it actively organized.
Coordinates the forces.
What did I say? Oh, I said ordinates.
Originates.
Excuse me. Continually coordinates the forces and materials within the organism to keep it actively organized. That is to say, creating, act of making, producing, fashioning, or bringing into existence, act of constituting or investing with a new character, title, or the like. That's from Webster's in parentheses. Now, this is back to Stevenson's. Innate takes elements of no adaptive character. Innate takes elements of no adaptive character and puts them together. In parentheses again, investing with new character. And now a new structure is brought into being. Okay. And is so maintained. Nothing less than intelligence can do this. It is all accomplished, not by creating new forces and matter out of nothing, but investing what is already existing with new character. Thus, the natural energies within the body are assembled and made to do the work of organization. In this light, then innate intelligence is the intelligence within the organism, which systematizes and forces already there. It is, scientifically speaking, the principle of organization. People get caught on that, actually, this one thing. Its creation are forces systematized adaptively and materials built into intelligently planned forms. That's a really good explanation of innate intelligence, okay?
Of the function of innate.
A function of innate. Because we go through in chiropractic bumping along, innate is expression of God in the body, but ultimately that's a good thing. What do you guys feel from that? Who's got some input?
I think we talk about how in religious terms or in spiritual terms, there is the creator that created that very much like itself, which is the innate intelligence within us. And when so we are creators. That's what it said. We are actual creators. When we are not subluxated, there's no interference between universal and innate. But within the body, it's innate, part and parcel of universal intelligence, I think. That's what, like Christ said when he said, I and my Father are one. I think that we do have within us the creative purity and intelligence of universal intelligence. But I'm open to debate.
I think that clearly is so. It's if you look at the manifestation of life as a single cell organism somewhere back in the ooze of time and the ooze of whatever was flowing around here on Earth at that time, and it was a single cell, but it adapted to its environment, and then at some point it started to coagulate with other cells because it was more efficient for a group to be together. And then it became a larger group and it began to differentiate because it was efficient to have one group doing one thing and one group doing something else. And over time, that evolves and evolves and evolves over time. That creative energy is there from the beginning. And we're at a current end point that's still moving forward and adapting and changing continually to our environment. And that's not to say that I'll go on the edge here and say, if you think of the Earth or a planet even as an entity, it adapts. Its environment is adapting to things that we're doing, and it's adapting to us, and we are adapting to it at the same time. And although it's inanimate, it's interesting that all those forces that are out there are adapting because of things that we do to us. So, but to go back, we've evolved from a single cell into what we are now, and our creative forces are continuing physically and intellectually to adapt and to change and to grow.
Well, what would you say in terms of consciousness? Is consciousness universal intelligence? Is consciousness innate intelligence? Did we have consciousness? Where was consciousness during the one-celled time of evolution?
I got nothing on that. I don't know that. What is consciousness? Is consciousness awareness of what's going on? Do you have to be, if you're unconscious, your body's still adapting on some level to what's going on. If you get knocked out, your body's still trying to adapt to its environment and what's going on to it at that moment. So is consciousness conscious thought? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying is consciousness at that point? Because the intelligence adapts, whether it's constantly.
Buddhists believe that consciousness is source.
What's the source?
Universal, innate.
Right.
So, B.J. Palmer, he asked this. We went through volume 33, and he asked the same question. Where did this thought come from? Consciousness, conscious thought. And is it stored? Do you store memories within you? Or do you have them in the Akashic record? We've talked about this before. What is thought? Where does it originate from? The difference of consciousness, being conscious of oneself, right? The difference between the squirrel and the birds is that I'm self-conscious of my own being, right? And, we can put that in biblical terms. That's when Adam or Eve ate the apple and they have the consciousness of good and evil. But prior to that, a dog doesn't know evil. There aren't evil dogs. There aren't evil monkeys. But now we have this consciousness that separates us from what we talked about before, maybe, lesser beings. And, but where is that? That's our prefrontal cortex, right? That is the prefrontal cortex, the difference in our brain structure. We're structured for it, structure and function, to have that consciousness, to be self-aware. And, I take that in chiropractic terms. When we're adjusted and clearer, and are we more conscious on a grounded or a spiritual level of the world around us, of ourselves, of our people, of our relationships? Bringing it back to chiropractic. So that's a really great question, Steve. That caused a lot of talk. I like it. What do you think, Steve?
Well, the question is, I don't know, but the question is, did consciousness happen when the nerve system became capable and more capable of consciousness? Or is consciousness something that happened that's always been here? And we are just becoming more and more godlike?
Well, that's in Genesis as well.
Is consciousness is consciousness an adaptive change from a single cell which was just function on whatever level, or are my, I don't want to say heart cells because they might be, are my muscle cells conscious, or are they just functioning and being adapted by other sources?
Is consciousness, let's get back to this one,
part of a higher level of evolution that we've achieved, that our at parts of our body are serve functions that are adapted but are not necessarily conscious on their own?
I'm going to take this back to number 23, principle 23. Is consciousness a function of innate intelligence?
Good question.
I think consciousness is an adaptation.
Okay.
And that consciousness is partially, on some level, a function of educated.
Well, you're talking the first line here. The function of innate intelligence is to create adaptive forces to be used in and for the body, to digest my food, to use it as living clay and make a living cell, to create something from inanimate or no longer alive into function. What were you going to say, Steve?
Well, maybe I'm just trying to be mechanistic, and maybe this is where the problem is. However, if I want to build a house, I have a plan. Does consciousness have a plan, or is this just some adaptive, that this human beingness, is that just some result of accidents, and or was there consciousness to begin with, and this adaptive where we are now, 13.8 billion years after the Big Bang, are we just a result of coincidences and accidents, or was there some sort of architect and plan that is pure consciousness?
I mean, that's a
Pure, now you got to be careful. Yeah, it's a pure consciousness or pure intelligence, and they're not necessarily the same, I don't think.
Well, we talk about there has to be a universal intelligence in all things, but it's not universal consciousness.
Universal intelligence is a creative force. It's an organizing force. It allows organization to happen. It organizes the universe.
We read that that's what innate does too inside the body. It creates. Is there something in Stevenson that talks more about what is universal intelligence?
The section that we started with, the first few are about universal intelligence, and we went through those in those principles. We talked about innate universal intelligence.
Okay.
We can go back to those later on, but let's do the research and we'll bring them up specifically once we look for them. If you want to look for them, that's great. Innate intelligence, the law of organization, continually coordinates the forces and materials within the organism to keep it actively organized. Because once innate intelligence is gone, that organization is gone. Decay begins immediately. And that the materia is no longer organizable because it doesn't have the innate intelligence to do it. Hence a corpse. I had the grand idea of chopping my papaya tree in half because it had nice branches off the side and I couldn't reach the big ones at the top. In Brazil, Marina, you might know what it's like to try and reach a papaya at the top of a tree and have it fall on your head. It's like 2 pounds, a couple of kilos landing on your head. It's no fun. And so I had the grand idea, chop it in half. Let's see if these ones will grow on the side. And I reached to pick up my papaya, my low-hanging fruit, and wacko, the whole limb fell off. And it showed me the whole system, even though it looked green, even though there was still fruit at the end of it, it was beginning to decay. Because what I did was I killed the tree. And it may look alive, but it was also already beginning to die. And I had the proof of that. And it was such a revelation for me. I got so excited. I just had like a little, chiropractic principle moment of innate intelligence and an understanding. And I couldn't wait to talk about my papaya tree today.
I think we should read 17 right now. I've got it up.
Go ahead.
This is called the first step of the normal complete cycle, universal intelligence.
What 17?
Page 17.
17.
Page 17, the normal complete cycle.
The infinite intelligence that is the source of everything in the universe. The infinite intelligence pervading all space and matter, which creates and governs all things, both material and immaterial. And then I'll just read down a few sentences. It must have been and is very intelligent. Having these virtues, it must have never made a mistake and therefore is always right. Being always right is always good. Being infinitely good is God. See Webster for definition of God. So why are we chiropractors so hung up about using the word God? It's in freaking Stevenson and BJ.
And, that's the thing. It is used in BJ's writing. It's used in DD's writing. It's used in Stevenson's writing. And that it is not used in the chiropractic profession out of fear. BJ and DD said it. That's why he said we're going to use the word innate instead of spirit. And we're going to use universal instead of God. Because people aren't ready.
Well, yeah.
And I think they're ready.
It goes on here. It says, God endows, I'll say God because I'm saying it. God endows living things with localized power, in parentheses, innate intelligence, as a higher manifestation of its forces. As if there's this superior intelligence, and then we're coming up through evolution and the development of the brain to be more and more like it.
What is evolution? I'm going to put in a chiropractic term, a structure change. Adaptation, but what happens in adaptation? Your structure changes. Structure determines function. So to change function, you have to change the structure. As a chiropractor, we're allowing the structure and function to be in harmony. So the body's able to change and adapt its structure. I like structure and function. I've always loved those terms. So, yeah, I like it. Thanks for bringing that up again. Normal complete cycle was fun to do. We did that before. I like reading that. And I like really how, Stevenson's gives us, you know what? I guess I have to say it as permission, because that's this freshman text of using spiritual terms like God. That's from, and I say that in, kind of loose way, but being able to use it and using it in the very beginning, where he doesn't use it so much in the end, but he started to set that tone. That's good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, anything else? It's 833, a spiritual number. Infinity and 33. Do you have any other insights from the function of innate intelligence, principle number 23?
Well, what you didn't mention on universal intelligence within and universal intelligence without in that cycle of sight. Haig, what do you have to say about that?
I'm thinking through it, and I've been thinking since you said it, and I think I need a little more time to think about it. The universal intelligence within and universal intelligence without. I say God is all things inside and outside.
That's what Alan said. Yeah, I agree.
I think if you go back to what you just read, Steve, about this first step in the cycle, and you say the intelligence is not limited, it is who we are. It is we who are limited in perception. We don't always understand everything. It endows living things with localized power, innate intelligence as a higher manifestation of its forces. So I think in that cycle of sight, universal's there, but it's there endowing innate with the power to interpret what's going on and coming into it from the outside in. It's not directly in that loop, as I was trying to point out. It's sitting there, but the pattern of what's going on in the cycle is outside of that. It's numbered, but it's not within the cycle.
I don't like that because I'm an ADIO guy, and that means inside out. Everything's coming from above down, inside out.
Well, it is. Universal is outside Universal is not outside. Universal is within us as well as without
right.
us.
That's right.
But it's
But
affecting.
it needs innate intelligence for organization.
In living things, it endows innate with the power to adapt within living things. It empowers innate to do the adaptations that are necessary to maintain life.
You wouldn't have one without the other.
You can't have one without the other.
I think your son working on his PhD in philosophy would be proud of us. We're proud of him. We're very proud of him.
I'm very proud of that boy.
I think that's wonderful. I absolutely think that's wonderful. Well, ladies,
I only hope that some of my involvement with chiropractic philosophy is what encouraged that kind of thought somewhere along the line.
Of course it is. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. No doubt about it. I want to save the limits and I want to save the next ones for next week. All right. Instead of going on to these right now, I think we should save these. We'll do number 24 and 25 together next week. That sound like a good plan?
Yeah, let me.
25 is a long one, isn't it?
25 is a long one. 25. We don't have to do all of that because it's redundant. Okay. He does a lot of repeating in a way. But go ahead, Steve.
I graduated with a philosophy degree. And one of the things I remember from this Greek professor, he said, philosophy is not a noun. It's a verb. It's a doing. And I experienced that tonight. When we do philosophy, it psychs me. And it allows me to practice better. It's a doingness. It's not just an object, if you know what I mean. Philosophy is a doing. Just like, to me, God is not something. God is Godding. That's what God is. It's a verb. And that's what we're doing here. Or maybe not.
I was looking at, I have a Sirius book 33, and I was looking at that today in reference to what we're doing tonight. And although Simon Senzon wrote a very interesting article about this, I want to read something that Sirio quotes in his commentary, the last section here, which is BJ's quote that says, "The master maker," because it applies to what we've just been talking about, "the master maker of the human body did not create you and then run off and leave you masterless. He stayed on the job as innate, as the fellow within, as nerve transmission controlling every function of life, as spirit from above down, inside out, expressing, creating, exploring, directing you in every field and phase of experience so that your home is truly the world and the world is your home."
Woo! That's poetry.
Hi, Marina.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Maria.
What do you got to say, Marie?
Give
Right
us
on
your
the
thoughts,
end.
please.
What's up?
I'm having some insights. I don't know if I'm probably I'm wrong, but
No, you're
just
probably
say,
right. There's no wrong in this class.
it's just something you just said, Alan. I think there's no place or no source of the universal intelligence for me. We are the source. We are creating everything every time, and if we think about before, not only the atoms that we have, like we are the source. We are creating everything, energy and everything. There's no place. We are part of it.
Correct. The world is your home and you are the world. It's all the same.
Yeah.
You know, that I love that. Thank you, Marina. And
Good.
a lot of the philosophical thought now is the world we live in is a projection from us anyway. because we're energetic beings. Whether this flesh actually exists or not, it may be just a projection of some level of consciousness. And so we're creating the world that we live in. We are as much God as we are material and consciousness. We are creators of our own consciousness and and self-consciousness of ourselves. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
So we don't see the world as the world is. We see the world as we are.
Well, what is the world? It's our perception of what we are.
We believe.
And if anything, what a lot of the newer thought is really is we're projecting it out to the world. This is a projection.
Wayne Dyer wrote a book. He said, believing is seeing. We've been taught seeing is believing. But he was saying, just what Marina was saying, is that we are the creators of the world. That's heavy duty.
It's heavy duty. You know, when you say, oh, you know, life is crap. Well, you're creating that crap. Change your mind. And the same thing in the world is wonderful. We're also creating that wonderful world that we live in. It's up to us. It's up to us.
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
Henry Ford. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? And let's bring this right back. Now, the end, we always try and bring it back to chiropractic. You know, when you have people, so many people that feel like they're the victim of their problems, and, you know, switching it back to them when they're adjusted, what do we see? I can see clear. One of my mentors used to hold up a Snellen eye chart before and after their adjustments. They always could read better, right? But when you're clearer, your adaptive forces are much more functioning at a level of normalcy. You're seeing the world in a brighter light, with clarity. And when, you know, with an adjustment, with each adjustment, you see, Pasquale used to say this, an adjustment makes life a little sweeter. And, you know, that's beautiful. Yeah. Well, you know, I've been in a grouchy mood. I got adjusted. Man, I feel better. I'm less grouchy, or whatever it might be.
I've had a number of patients that, you know, were artists or musicians and have had people come in and say, after you adjust me, the tone of the piano was different. The tone of the horn was different. The colors in my art were brighter and more vibrant. You know, that after I got adjusted, you know, whatever their focus was, whatever was important to them, opened up in a new way for them.
That's the power of chiropractic. And it's the power of talking about our philosophy, because the art is the philosophy. The science is the philosophy. And when we're talking about this philosophy, we're understanding ourselves better, and we're understanding our people, and we're understanding how powerful it is, what we do in delivering this thing to humanity. And I was watching a show, and they were talking about how, you know, acupuncture was given from a spiritual entity, and how we've had consciousness and dreams and all those things. That's exactly how D.D. Palmer got it, from a spiritual entity, a spiritual consciousness, an inspiration, as he said, which means to bring in spirit. This is as a spiritual practice as any there is of all, you know, and a lot of people run from that in chiropractic and want to become something else. The chiropractic, not that it's a religion, but, you know, as a spiritual consciousness first, I feel.
And and for those of us sitting here tonight, if you think about what we're doing as we discuss this, and although we're intellectualizing it, it also is inspiring and creating new thought in us, and allowing us to create and expand chiropractic in the world. And effectively, we're adjusting each other while we talk here.
I agree. It's doing philosophy. Listen to this sentence, you guys. Each day, each hour, every instant, I am choosing what I want to look upon, the sounds I want to hear, the witnesses to what I want to be the truth for me.
Where's that from?
That's called Lesson 271 of the Course in Miracles.
We went through the
Which
Course
is
in
all
Miracles in the
about-
morning meetings in my office. In my office, we do, readings with my team, and we went through the Course in Miracles a couple of years ago. It was a lot of fun. It was amazing. It's all about love. I'll sum the whole thing up. Love. Absolutely. And when we love the people, we love ourselves. And, what greater language is there than love? Period.
And it's also taking responsibility for my experience, that nothing happens outside of me. The person that disturbs me isn't happening outside of me. It's how I react, how I respond. It's my respondability. And this is what chiropractic is teaching, that the cause and the cure is internal, right?
I've got a little story. Today, actually yesterday, my mother lives with us. She's 91, and you know what? She's a lot of work. Love her, but it's not easy. And we were having a moment, and I felt this immediately, whammo, right in the neck, heart chakra, heart moment. And, I knew what it is, and I got on with my day. My wife and I laughed, but it was there. I couldn't turn my head and whatever. And I know I'm well adjusted. My body's adapting. I can handle it. I went into the office today and I told my CA, I said, I'm going to teach you how to adjust me today. And I had I had the activator. We did some activator right at T1. She did a beautiful job. And I said, wow, look how wonderful this is. There is still an energy in my body. And that energy, we went from here, went into my low back. And I hobbled. I don't hobble. It hurt. And I walked like a normal person, and I got on through my day. And I realized it's not something that's happening to me. I'm not the victim of this, but my body wasn't ready to let go of that energy. It's still something I'm dealing with. It's father, mother and son, right? Life and death. And, how the body integrates. It's not meant to be just disappear, fix me. My body still has to deal with it. And I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm leaning back in my chair, have my feet up on the desk, and I realized, my back doesn't hurt. And it hurt like crazy right before this started. And, having moments where we're able to dissipate the energy and create this adjustment. Now we're all adjusting each other right here.
Wow.
And so this is going out far and wide, that energy of service. And to me, it's not healing. It's just integration of that energy, because it's not going away. And it wasn't really a wound of physical. It was emotional. And for me, it gives me empathy for all the people that come to us. They're all that little child that, got yelled at. My son, sometimes he's a very sensitive boy. And, I can feel it with him. And I know everybody is that little boy or that little girl, and they have that inside of us. Now, no matter how old we are. So I feel blessed in every way to have you all and chiropractic in my life. And I appreciate you.
One of the things that before we get off, that I've been saying for years about chiropractic is we don't treat symptoms. We don't run from symptoms. Actually, before this call, I was feeling unappreciated, and I wasn't sure whether I was projecting it or it was actually something out there. So I put it out there in front of us, and I resolved it. I expressed it. So to focus our practice on removing symptoms is a cardinal sin in chiropractic.
It's the
We
least
want
of what we do.
Huh?
It's the least of what we do.
But we want, when we're feeling a symptom, we want to address it, not to get rid of it. Ultimately, it will go but first we need to recognize it, lean into it, confront it, and not saying that it's doing it to me. This backache, what do they call it, like heart attacks? You're telling me your heart's attacking you, and it's not a heart attack. This is something that's happening for us. So
Well, that's what Thich Nhat Hanh in Buddhism says. It talks about. He says you have to love the things that happen to you. When you're suffering, you love the suffering, and allow and address it and say, I love you,
And give
because
thanks.
because it's there to teach you and to learn.
Ram Dass used to talk about when he had a stroke. He used to say, when I was stroked. So this is what's beautiful about our philosophy, man. And it's courageous. That's real courage. We lean into it.
All right, guys and girls, it is, what's that? I don't know what that is. It's hard to hear. Oh, good old Beatles. All right.
Yeah.
Love, love, love. All you need
Love,
is
love, love. Well, let's end this on love. I love you guys. It's been a beautiful day. It's good to see Marina back on today. And I like it. The light is shining behind you like you're glowing right now, Marina. All right? Like an angel. The angels are with you today for sure. All right? God bless you all. I love and appreciate you. Have an amazing, amazing life. And I will see you again next week, same time. All right?
Love
Love
you
you
guys.
guys. Good night.